Have hopes, dreams, and aspirations about life. We want to live in certain geographic areas. We want to live in a certain type of house. Some of us are okay living in apartments. Some of us want to live in a home. Some of us want to travel. Some of us want to pursue education. We want to pursue business. Some of us want to have children. Some of us don't want to have children. You're in a relationship with someone, when you love someone, when you're seeking a commitment with someone, there are changes that have to be made. It's called compromise. Whenever you've had a bad experience, whatever that experience may be, it can be your first kiss, and it just wasn't a good one. And that'll stay with you and cause you to be more resistant or delayed in kissing again. Same way with sex. You have a bad sexual experience, not just a painful one because it's your first time, but just a bad experience overall because of how it happened. There may have been some embarrassment involved. There may have been some aggression involved. There may have been some molestation involved. But the experience stays with you forever. I can be the best provider in the world. I can have you in a $120,000 home. I can have you in the finest garments, the finest car. I can give you anything that you want, anything that you ask for. But let bad sex come into the equation and it changes the course of the relationship. Things that you did when you were single, you can't continue to do. You just can't. You can't continue to hang out with the girls. You can't continue to hang out with the guys every weekend. You can't find time for those individuals and then neglect your time that you have to spend with your partner. I often tell people when in conflict, make every situation a teach you about me moment instead of a tell you about you moment. I need to tell you about me. I need to tell you about how I feel when you say and or do something that draws up some kind of feeling in me, there's some kind of attitude within me. I have to address that. I have to address that. I can't put it on the other person because it doesn't belong to them. So when we're entering into a relationship, we have to look at why we're entering into a relationship. If you don't want a commitment, simply say, I don't want a commitment, and move on. If you do want a commitment, then there are some things you have to do called compromise. And a lot of times the compromise may not have any balance to it. Sometimes one person seems to be compromising more than the other. And I say seems to be because sometimes some people are incapable of compromising and opening up and being willing in certain aspects because of some unresolved stuff. We all have unresolved stuff. The question is, do you want to deal with those things? The question is, do you really want that relationship bad enough to sit down and say, hey, this is what's going on with me. I don't know where it comes from. You say I do it. I need to take a look at it. Not maybe I should take a look at it. I should take a look at it. And I should take a in-depth look, not some superficial glance at why I do this, but take an in-depth search into where did this come from for me, and try to bring some resolve to it. That's where your ego and superego come into play. Because now you begin to find a way to manage that so you won't be as offending or as offended by certain things that the other person may be doing. And it's difficult to do that. It's really difficult to do that in the heat of the moment. But I've always learned that as soon as you realize that you have caused harm to somebody, that's the time when you apologize for your behavior. That's the time you say, hey, I was wrong. And that's something a lot of us don't do anymore. In our relationships, we don't say, hey, I was wrong. And I need to do something about that behavior, but I need your help. And we need to help each other. And that's what happens in relationships often times, that people don't say, hey, I need help. They try to do it on their own. And if you keep going to yourself for the resolve in every situation, you're going to always come away, in a lot of instances, with the same outcome. And it's going to be repeated throughout the behavior. Then eventually the behavior becomes problematic. Eventually the behavior becomes something that's no longer acceptable, no longer tolerable, and the relationship comes to an end. So there are a lot of things that we have to begin to look at when we're entering into a relationship with a person. Let me change that. There's things we have to begin to look at before entering into a relationship with someone. So when we enter into relationships and we say that the person tried to change us, what does that mean? What does that look like to you? You can't wear the same clothing in a committed relationship that you did when you were single, in many instances. And many will say, well, Sabir, because you're Muslim, you have a different perspective. Well, no, it's not just the fact that I'm Muslim that I have this perspective. I have this perspective because I'm a man, and because I know what men think when looking at women. I know if I walk by a woman on the street and I speak to her, I spoke to her for a reason. I didn't speak to her just because I wanted to say hi, just because I'm a friendly, sociable person. There was a reason why. And a lot of times we overlook that because of our own arrogances, because our id is out of control, because the id seeks to satisfy itself, first and foremost. First and foremost. The id is balanced by the ego. So when I hear people talk about somebody being egotistical, look at the term. Look at what ego is. Look at the role of the ego within a human being. Look at the role of the id within a human being. And then look at the role of the superego. Those aspects of self we never venture into because we don't think in those terms. We think in terms of the id. We think in terms of being immediately satisfied. We think in terms of pleasing ourselves first and foremost. So when we enter into relationships with that id being out of control and out of balance, we come into the relationship seeking to satisfy ourselves. So we want things. We want to be shown things. We want to be given things. We don't look at the person as a human being. We look at this person now as an object. And any woman or any man, but mostly in the case of women, who are looked at as objects, find it offensive. But I'm offended. I'm offended when you look at me as a man and look at me as a good provider. Look at me as a person who can give you the things that you've always wanted, who can take you to places that you've always been. Not looking at me as a person who could love you. We often can tell when our children are sexually active. We can tell. Their swagger changes. Their attitude changes. They start talking differently. They start walking differently. We use the term, you're smelling yourself. You stay away from the boys, you stay away from the girls, so on and so forth. But what we don't do is engage our children to the capacity of teaching them what happens during the sexual experience. We just talk about the fornication aspect of it. We don't talk about the value of self and how sex often becomes the barrier between them and healthy living. How it changes the relationship. You know, it changed our relationship, but we don't have that discussion. We don't tell them about the first experience. Not that it was just a good experience or a bad experience, but what it did to them emotionally. How they began to change emotionally. But we chastise, we discipline, we punish, but we're not teaching. We're not teaching. Part of the disciplining process means to educate and teach the child what is going on with them and why having sex so early has impacted the way that it has. Because now that becomes the focus in their lives. Now it becomes a matter of, I've had this experience, so now I engage others differently. I engage others differently. Sexually. I'm different because I've had the experience. I know it's there. I know that it's wanted by my partner. I know that it's something that is very significant to the relationship. But yet, we're not teaching that. So what happens is you get a young mind to begin to formulate within themselves sex and its significance to the relationship with that other person. And they make that the most significant part of the relationship. Then they're no longer wanted. It's devastating. Because it became their world, because they thought that this was going to be it. This is the person who I want to be with. This is what I want to do. I gave him myself. I gave her myself. And when boys engage in sex, they're not looking at themselves from giving of themselves. They're looking at themselves from the perspective of conquering something. When girls do it, girls see themselves different because they value themselves differently. A boy is not taught to value his penis. He's not taught to value his penis at all. What he's taught is that his penis is of value, in the sense that, you know, if you got it going on, you can get all the girls gonna want you. You can have older girls, you know, you can, yeah, you got it going on now, so you can get it. People who have been in relationships for years and still being engaged, still talking about marriage, I really have to question their sincerity to being married. What's the delay? Now, I can honestly say that I have experienced delaying marrying, but still having the intention to marry, because there are two different things there. I would delay marrying because there are some things that I feel need to be worked out. And sometimes people don't want to take the time to work things out. They want things to happen right now. And again, that's that unmanaged id. That's that unmanaged id. But having been married before, I have a different perspective. I have experience being married. So I know some of the pitfalls that happen in failing of marriage. I know some of the successful areas of marriage as well. But the first thing that people say when I say, well, I've been married 2-3 times, what are you doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? Never looking at the fact that I've been married and you've never been married. Or you've never sought to remarry after years gone by and continue to date. Continue to date. You can't continue to date. Because you will find yourself conditioning yourself to be in a condition of being single. Therefore, when it's time for you to enter into a committed relationship, a serious relationship, marriage is difficult, for lack of a better word. It's difficult because you have conditioned yourself to be single. Okay, now that you watch the video trailer, there's some work to do. There's a lot of information that's in that short clip for you to be able to take a look at some areas of your own relationship, right? Now, you may say, well, my relationship is great, but don't you want a greater relationship? See, that's one of the things that we often do wrong. We become complacent, and we call ourselves being happy in our relationship, and that's the extent of it. And then it grows old. You don't add anything to it. You stay just as you are. You don't make any changes, and that's how your relationship ends up being. Any human being wants to see change. Anybody wants to see a difference in their lives. Nobody wants to keep doing the same thing every day, on and on and on and on. Eventually you get tired of it, and you want to do something different. You want something new, and that's part of the problem. Hence the reason why we have such a high divorce rate, because people are not doing things to continue to enhance and build and strengthen the foundation of their relationships. So that's the whole idea behind the book, Why Are You My Ex? Giving you an inside look into male-female relationships as opposed to an outside look. And when I say an outside look, we drive by people and we're around people all the time who present as being happy, who present as being comfortable in their skin, who present as a united front. But on the other side of the door, in private, they're struggling. And we all have our ups and downs. We can all, at any point in time, go through a struggle. But part of the problem with us going through struggles is these same struggles continue to arise because they have no resolve. They have no resolve. And that's what this book does. This book helps you to look at things in a different perspective to help you to begin to bring resolve to some of the unresolved. So you say, well, Sabir, how are we going to watch a 20-minute trailer and all of a sudden begin to bring resolve into our lives? Well, first thing you have to do is become willing. That's the first thing. You have to be willing. And you have to want to see your relationship continue to improve. You have to want to see it improve. Because if you don't think your relationship is going to get old with you being complacent and doing the same thing over and over again, watch. 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever the length of time, you're going to see your relationship deteriorate, crash, burn, and it's over. And you're going to be sitting on the edge of the bed or laying in the bed in a fetal position trying to figure out why. After all these years, she wants to leave. He wants to leave. You don't understand. You don't want to understand it. You don't want to understand it. If you wanted to understand it, then you begin to do the work now. So part of the work is that I'm going to ask of you is when you watch the trailer, you saw several pictures of me. Those pictures of me took place at varying stages of my life. One of those pictures, I believe I was around 5 years old. Another one of those pictures, I was between the ages of 9 and 10. One, I was in my early 20s, probably around 23, between 23 and 26. Another of those pictures, the last picture, it was actually taken about two years ago, and I'm in my 50s. So I want you to take pictures of yourself. Don't go photograph pictures of you, because you can't take a picture of yourself at 5 because you're not 5. But get those pictures. Get about 5 pictures of different areas, different stages and ages of your life, and get those pictures. And I want you to find the most comfortable, peaceful place, whether it's in your house, whether it's in the park, whether it's on a boat. I want you to find a peaceful, safe, comfortable place. And I want you to take those pictures, and I want you to spread them all out. And I want you to look at each of those pictures. And then I want you to take each individual picture, and I want you to look at it. I want you to look at the environment you were in at the time. Whose house was it? Was it a vacation place? Was it an old neighborhood? right? And I want you to recall to the best of your ability what was going on in that environment. I want you to identify things about that environment, right? Then I want you to take a look at your own image. I want you to look at what you were wearing. I want you to look at hairstyle. I want you to look at if you, for instance, if you had earrings on and you were young. How early was that you had your first pair of earrings? I got my first earring in my ear when I was 13. My mother allowed me to finally get an earring in my ear because I kept saying I want an earring in my ear because I thought it was so cool, right? Also, I was light skinned, had red, shady, red, sandy brown color hair, and it's cute. I want to be cute, and the girls like, dudes with earrings in their ear, so I wanted an earring in my ear. And then I want you to begin to look at your facial expression. I want you to look into your eyes, because remember, the eyes, in fact, are a window to our souls. And I want you to focus on that picture. I don't want you to glance at it. I want you to sit there and I want you to remember. I want you to recall. And I want you to recall the most significant events that took place during that period. So, for instance, if you take 4 significant events, write down 2 positive significant events and 2 negative significant events. I want you to write them down, what those events were. And I want you to do the same thing for each one of those pictures. Now, don't skim over this, because you're doing your own life a disservice when you do that. You're minimizing a lot of things. You're just skimming past it because you really don't want to confront it. And that's important to understand. You're skimming past it for a reason. You're minimizing it for a reason. I want you to do the same thing for each one of those pictures. I want you to write it down. Write down the event. Write down names. Who was involved in the event? Who lived in that area? Who you talked to about it, if anybody? Who you couldn't talk to about it? I want you to write those things down. And I want you to look at why you couldn't talk to, for instance, if it was Uncle Bill. Why you felt you couldn't talk to Uncle Bill about what had transpired? Why do you feel as though you couldn't confront the issue during that time? What was it about you? What was it about that person or persons that prevented you from doing that? What was it? You have to begin to look at those things, because you'll find that there's a pattern. There's a chain of events that establish a pattern throughout the course of your life. And you do the same thing for each one of these pictures. Each one of these pictures. If you were married, if you were divorced, if you broke up with a girlfriend, if you cheated, if you went outside the relationship and you felt guilty about it, but you never talked about it and you kept on going and the person never found out. Right? Now, after you get done doing all of that, because this is going to take some time. This is not like a 5-minute or even a 1-hour exercise. Right? You may want to go back after you write things down and take that picture and put it with all the things that you've written down and focus on that. I would take 30 days. I would take that one picture, everything you wrote down, and I would address that aspect of my life for 30 days. I would just look at what I wrote, look at the picture, and begin to recall all of those things. Now you say, well, see, there's probably going to be some things that are not real pleasing that come back up. Okay, but how did you resolve those things? Have you resolved those things? Why haven't you resolved those things? Do you want to resolve those things? Do those things play out in your life today and interfere with healthy relationships today? These are questions only you can ask yourself. These are only questions that you can ask yourself. The human being is nothing but chemicals. Nothing but chemicals. With a soul placed inside of it. So your soul is not connected to the chemical. Your soul is connected to whatever spiritual, religious foundation that you have embraced, if any at all. If you haven't embraced any, then maybe that may be part of your internal struggle as well.